On this edition of Independent Sources, Train of Death, one filmmaker tells the harrowing story of hundreds of South and Central American immigrants who risked death and dismemberment as they tried to cross Mexico into the U.S.
Armenians in America. The Armenian Diaspora is seeking a bigger role in governments back home.
And City Harvest's effort to get healthy, affordable food to low-income communities in New York City.
Welcome to Independent Sources. I'm Viano Ravinka.
And I'm Zyphus Lebrun, standing in while Gary's away.
Every day, hundreds of Southern and Central American immigrants hop onto fast-moving cargo trains on the Mexico-Guatemala border in an effort to cross Mexico and get to the U.S.-Mexico border. These people endure beatings, rapes, and in some cases death and dismemberment as they make the arduous journey.
This journey has become woven into the modern mythology of the region, so much so that the trains are known as El Tren de la Muerte, or the Train of Death. One journalist turned filmmaker has sought to document this story in his film, The Beast.
I recently sat down with the film's director, Pedro Ultreras, to talk about the movie that was released on DVD in US and Puerto Rico on March 8th. Pedro, in your film, you have a man describing what it is like to get on the train that you call the Beast, or that people call the Beast. And that man says that it's like entering the gates of hell. Tell us about the train.
Yes, in fact, it is. Riding the Beast, or the Train of Death, as it is also known, El Tren de la Muerte, Train of Death, it is like entering to hell for most of Latin American migrants, or Central Americans in the great majority, because when they ride this train, when they get on this train, they don't know if they get off alive. Anything can happen to them when they're on the trains. They can fall off and be mutilated by the trains. They can be robbed. They can be killed. They can be raped on the trains. It is the easiest way for criminals, for organized crime, for thieves, gang members, and even authorities to rob and kill people in Mexico.
And still people take this voyage twice despite losing limbs and all the perils that you mentioned. They get to the border with the U.S. and cross the border. Eventually they do choose to take this another time.
Well, there is no other way for them. When they enter Mexico, they have to do it illegally, because Mexico does not allow them to come to cross Mexico legally. So the only way for them to avoid the authorities is by riding those trains. They want to leave the countries because the economical situation in their countries is very critical. So they dream to come to the United States, and in order to come to the United States, they need to cross Mexico. And crossing to the United States is not a big of a problem for them. Crossing Mexico is a challenge. Crossing Mexico for them means death. And the only way, they cannot get in a typical bus, because there are border patrol checkpoints all over Mexico. Mexico is sort of a minefield of immigration checkpoints.
But then they don't check the train.
Because those are cargo trains. You know, there's no typical train stations where people get in and out.
Right.
There's no passenger trains in Mexico. It's just cargo trains.
But there is some knowledge on the part of the Mexican authorities about these migrants using the train.
Of course they do. I mean, if Mexico really want to stop this problem, they will detain them at the beginning of the journey in the border with Guatemala and Mexico. But somehow they don't do anything. Sometimes the Mexican authorities, Mexican immigration, conducts raids on the roof of the cargo trains, and that has caused a lot of tragedies, because those raids sometimes are conducted while the train is moving. And so the migrants jump off. I mean, take in consideration that there's not a group of 5 or 10 or 50. We're talking about 500, 700, even 1,000 migrants on the roof of cargo trains that could go from 100 cars to 200 cars. So when they hear that the Mexican migra, the Mexican Border Patrol, is on the roof of the cargo trains, people jump off. They just run. And a lot of the times, that train is moving. So it has caused a lot of tragedies when the Mexican authorities try to detain him.
You are a Mexican citizen. You know the Mexican government very well. Why do you think that there's not a different kind of action taken by the government to prevent this tragedy?
It's hard to say why. I mean, the Mexican government is fully aware of the situation. It has always been. It's ironic sometimes that the Mexican government complains to the U.S. government for the abuses to Mexicans trying to cross the United States, but on the other hand, it allows the authorities to do exactly the same to Central Americans. I don't know why the government doesn't do anything. We really hope that things will change for the good of these people. People are dying in Mexico. Mexico has become a giant cemetery for Central Americans, and a lot of times their relatives in their home countries don't know where they died. They think they're in the States, and they forgot about them, and they're buried somewhere in Mexico.
Do you think that there is, to some extent, any sort of feelings of antipathy or xenophobia on the part of the Mexican authorities to people from Guatemala or Central America in general for not taking action?
I don't see that as happening. I think it's just they just neglected to do it, and they just abuse them, to rob them, to kidnap them. Most of the Mexican authorities of all levels, they kidnap these people, they rob them, they rape women. It's just a way to abuse them, but not because they don't like them or they hate them. You know, especially in recent times, Mexico somehow has become a little bit out of control, and authorities are involved in a lot of these crimes, and now even the organized crime is involved in this as well.
And how is exactly the organized crime using the people who are boarding the train for their own purposes?
Well, there are different ways. One of them is that they kidnap them, and people say, well, but these people doesn't have any money. I mean, they don't have money, they are poor. But they know that those migrants have relatives living in the United States. So they ask them for phone numbers to contact their relatives in the United States, and ask those relatives for $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. And they say, if you don't send us the money, we kill your relative. And sometimes they ask for phone numbers of the relatives in their home countries as well. And people in their home countries, they sell whatever they have to send the money. And that's one of the ways, by robbing and kidnapping these people. And the other way, the other thing they are doing, the organized crime is doing to migrants, is they're trying to use them as mules. They're trying to use them as assassins to kill for them. And it happened last August. They killed 72 migrants because they refused to be part of their group. One of the groups is called Losetta's disease, and they operate in North Mexico. They killed them in a massive way inside of like a house, and it's unacceptable. I mean, it's happening every single day, and organized crime is controlling the migrants on North Mexico.
Most of the people who are riding this train are from Central America, but you have mentioned to me that you've met people from other parts of the world. Tell me about that.
Exactly. Yeah. When I was in southern Mexico doing this documentary, I met a guy from Kenya. It was another one from Mali, a few of them from Brazil, and then I met a family from Iraq. And this family was in the border with Mexico, Mexico and Guatemala. They were in a shelter already. It was the mom, the dad, and two kids. How they made it from Iraq, no idea. But they got to Guatemala and tried to enter Mexico from Guatemala. And as people told me, they see people coming in from all over the world. The great majority of them are from Central America, a lot of South America as well, but you see people from all over the world trying to cross Mexico to reach the U.S.
Is the media in Mexico and the international media doing a good job addressing this issue? Are they covering it at all?
They are now. In the last 12 months, I think the Mexican media, the Spanish media in the United States, and even the international media is doing a better job covering these issues. But somehow the media ignored this situation years before. And especially because the massive killings of migrants, as the one I mentioned, it has made international news. And since then, it has become a hot topic in the media. Just about a month and a half ago, they kidnapped about 55 migrants in southern Mexico as well. They don't know what happened to them. So far, no one knows. It is sad to believe that they will end up dead somewhere. But yeah, the Mexican media, international media is following this news more closely since all these recent tragedies have occurred. But in the past, it was very much ignored.
And hopefully with your film, La Bestia, or The Beast, more people will know about it and something will be done.
Well, the only thing that I'm trying to do is just, to make people conscious of this issue, to get to know that this is happening, it's happening now, and it's taking a lot of lives away, and it's happening in Mexico to people that speak the same language than Mexicans, that look exactly the same as Mexicans, and they are humans as well, and their rights should be respected.
Pedro Ultreras, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
The Mexican parliament is currently considering legislation that would offer these immigrants short-term visas while they travel through the country. If successful, this could be a bone of contention between the U.S. and Mexico, as it would essentially mean free passage for these immigrants who are trying to enter the States illegally.
Still to come on Independent Sources, Armenian Americans want more say in their home country's public policy. Before that, Abby Ishola has some other news.
Thanks, Zyphus. Here's a look at some headlines from the ethnic media. From World Journal, Councilwoman Margaret Chen has proposed 2 bills to the City Council that would benefit Chinatown residents. The first bill would require landlords in large buildings to provide funding to take care of tenants who are forced to move out due to an emergency, such as a fire. Chen says buildings in Lower Manhattan have fire and structural issues that have forced many residents out of their homes. Currently, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, covers such costs. The second bill calls for New York State to pass legislation to monitor long-distance bus companies. The potential law would require towns with a population of over 1 million to provide permits for long-distance buses. It would also address issues regarding Chinatown bus stops. The Amsterdam News reports that one nonprofit organization has taken its fight for troubled homeowners directly to the headquarters of Chase Bank. Members of the New York Communities for Change, along with several struggling homeowners, recently staged their second protest in front of Chase Bank on Park Avenue. They say Chase is refusing to give loan modifications to homeowners facing foreclosure. Chase Bank released a statement saying they're doing all they can to help homeowners, and they've offered nearly 1 million loan modifications since January 2009. A Filipino woman is fighting to regain custody of her daughter, whom she says was sexually abused by her father. Karina Barsotti fled China with her 7-year-old daughter seeking refuge in America after the child allegedly told Barsotti and teachers that she was being fondled by her father. Barsotti's ex-husband, who was American, later tracked them down in California. The child's paternal grandparents were awarded custody. The Philippine Consulate General and the Filipino-American Legal Defense and Education Fund are helping Barsotti with her case to regain guardianship. That from the Filipino Reporter. And finally, from The Forward, a new Jewish community organization on Staten Island may become the central hub for Jews in the area. The Office of Jewish Community Affairs will provide services such as a community-wide calendar showcasing spiritual, cultural, and social services available in the area. Jewish leaders on Staten Island say the community has been disjointed for years since many Jews on the island tend to stick to their own synagogues and associate primarily with members of their own denomination. Those were just a few headlines from the ethnic media. Back to Zyphus and Vianora in the studio.
Thanks, Abby. Armenian Americans are demanding a greater voice in the governing and policy issues of their country. This after the recent case of a 20-year-old woman who was beaten to death by her husband sparked outrage and protest amidst the diaspora.
As a result, the Armenian president has floated the idea of creating a second chamber of parliament that would give Armenians living abroad more power to shape public policy.
I spoke with journalist Florence Avakian and community leader Dr. Dennis Papazian about the guarded optimism and expectations for this proposal. Dennis, according to community activists quoted by New America Media, domestic violence is quite common, unfortunately, both in Armenia and also in the American diaspora. What made this case of a 20-year-old woman beaten to death by her husband be the spark to light these protests?
Well, I think there have been a number of protests, actually, and they were repressed. They were political protests. And Armenians are very sensitive about home life. And then when this occurred, it became a cause célèbre because there was no way to repress it politically. It was a human interest thing. And then the Minister of Diaspora was asked about it, and she said, well, Armenian women are humble, they love their families, et cetera, et cetera. Wasn't quite the right answer to give. And then it got much worse. And finally, they came out and said, of course, this was terribly wrong. The people who carried this out had to be prosecuted. And actually, there was some TV footage, too, which made it even more prominent. So I think it was a confluence of these different things. The fact that people wanted to express themselves but couldn't politically, and then all of a sudden, here was a human interest story that could come out.
This idea of a parliamentary body within the diaspora was initiated by Diaspora Affairs Minister Hranush Hagopian, and according to the media, it was tacitly endorsed by the Armenian President Sargsyan. It spurred a heated debate both in Armenia and here. Florence, tell us more about some of the reactions.
Well, this is still a very a new concept, idea that has been brought forward by the diaspora minister. It's about a month old, and reaction by the community here has been very sparse so far. However, it's an idea that has been talked about for a long time, and it has been talked about positively. But before anything like this can go forward, you need a constitutional amendment, and a constitutional amendment has to be approved by the people in a referendum. 1/3 of approximately 2.4 million voting citizens of Armenia have to approve this. In 2005, there were several constitutional amendments that were put forward, amongst them taking away the ban on dual citizenship, which now is active. So this kind of proposal has a lot of ands, ifs, or buts to it. You know, who would be represented? How would they be picked? Would they have to live in Armenia, the people who become part of this? Would they have to become citizens, etc.?
Maybe we could step back and look at the peculiar situation of the Armenian diaspora. Present-day Armenia is 1/10 of historic Armenia. Most of the Armenians in the Western diaspora are the people who survived the genocide of 1915 and the progeny of those people. And so they have an idea that we don't really have a full homeland because Eastern Armenian is only partially our homeland. Then you have a large diaspora in Russia, 1.5 million, 2 million. And in Armenia, you only have around 3 million today. And so the diaspora is larger than the so-called homeland. And we give a great deal of money. If it wasn't for the money that came from the diaspora, from the Russian diaspora, American diaspora, the American government, other governments, Armenia could not survive. And so people have been saying for quite a while, look, if we're going to pay the bill, we want to have some say. Now, this is a terribly complicated situation, as Florence well pointed out. And it's a long way between the idea, the trial balloon, which was floated, and any results. But people are really taking it seriously in one sense. They're thinking about it. I met with the head of an important Armenian political organization Saturday, and he said to me, how would you vote for this person? And I said, undoubtedly, it's going to be an honorary position that the government of Armenia would probably look at prominent Armenian citizens throughout the world and sort of say, you're going to make up this new body. And my own guess is that we'll have very little political power. It'll be a place where prominent people can go and express themselves, show a concern for Armenia, and be a sounding board of the diasporan opinion, which I think is very important, because Armenia will not survive without the diaspora.
Yet you say that it would have very little political power?
Very little.
Political power? How so?
Who?
This new legislative body.
House.
Well, it stands to reason that unless you live there and pay taxes, you're not going to have the same rights of franchise as those who live there day to day and pay taxes and support the government. Unless, as Florence pointed out, people would be willing to move to Armenia, and then you don't have the representation of diaspora, because there's no diaspora once you move to Armenia. So,
Florence, you agree?
Well, I mean, an important concept here is, how would the Armenians of Armenia feel about this? Would they feel that they're being overlorded by the diaspora, even though the diaspora is some more than 7 million Armenians around the world, and there's less than 3 million in Armenia? How would they feel about outsiders, which basically we are in a certain sense? We don't live there, we don't pay taxes, we don't go through the hardships of life there. So how would they feel about us just coming in like that? And
how do you think they feel about it?
Well, we don't know. We don't know. One of the main opposition parties is definitely against this in Armenia. This is a party that's headed by a former president of Armenia, and he's totally against this.
What are some of the concerns within the diaspora for Armenia, aside from the domestic violence issue?
Well, I think obviously Armenia is in a precarious situation. There's a blockade between Armenia and Turkey. Armenia is landlocked. It depends on supplies being shipped in now almost totally, obviously, by train and by truck. And so until Armenia has a more secure international political status, it needs the protection of the diaspora. And I think perhaps you know that the Armenians in America are very, very active politically, and we have a strong representation in Washington, D.C. Some people say we have the second most powerful ethnic lobby in America. Of course, our representation is not a lobby, but people use that term in general. And as a matter of fact, we do have quite a bit of clout. And I'm very proud to say I was one of those who founded the Armenian Assembly of America, one of the two powerful representative groups, and the Armenian National Committee, which I also support. So yes, they need our help, and they need the help of the Armenians of Russia, who supply a goodly amount of the income that keeps Armenia afloat.
Florence Avakian and Dr. Denis Papazian, thank you very much for joining us in studio today.
It's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
When we come back on Independent Sources, City Harvest and their drive to bring food to needy communities.
How you doing? My name's Steve. My family's lived in this neighborhood for years. Recently, things got so tight, we had to go to our local food bank for help. I lost a lot of sleep worrying about what the neighbors might think. That is until I saw them there, too. How'd I do, Steve?
A little stiff. You could have done a little better.
What? Come on. You know, I have an Academy Award.
Yeah, but not for playing me.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
My name is Fernanda. I'm the wife of a teacher. Budget cuts affected my husband's salary, so I'm picking up some part-time work. We're doing everything we can to make sure our kids eat today. Tomorrow, I just don't know. Fernanda, how'd I do?
Well, I usually fold the underwear first.
I meant the acting, but good to know.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
And finally tonight, we continue our look at food access in New York City. It's estimated that nearly half of city households with children have difficulty affording food. Statistics also show that more than 2 million people statewide rely on some form of emergency food assistance. What's more concerning is that these figures continue to grow yearly.
We wanted to take a closer look at how some city organizations have been trying to address this issue of food access. One such initiative is City Harvest Mobile Market Program. The mobile markets are bi-monthly food distributions to needy neighborhoods in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. I recently visited the largest mobile market in the Bronx. Volunteers and residents alike braved the freshly falling snow to attend one of the bi-monthly mobile market visits to the Melrose houses in the Bronx.
This is part of our bigger Healthy Neighborhoods initiative, where we're hoping to increase demand in this area for healthy food, to empower the people that live here to ask for healthier food when they go shopping.
A quick pep talk to the volunteers, and they're off, weighing items and helping residents heap food into their baskets.
Sir, you need your slip, right? You're welcome.
So everybody that's in this market must reside at these the Melrose houses. We have 3 houses here. It's Melrose houses, Air Rights houses, and Morrisania Andrew Jackson houses. So they all must reside here, and they need to show proof of address and proof of photo ID in order for us to register them. Once they come with that information, we will register them, and that very same day they will get 20 pounds of all items combined. Then once we enter them into the system, according to the family composition, they will get the weight that's allocated to them.
Today, the volunteers are doling out nearly 18,000 pounds of food to the 300 people estimated to be attending the market. City Harvest officials say the mobile markets are more than just a place where residents can pick up free food.
We're really trying to focus, bringing additional resources to the community. So even today we've had some visiting nurses, we've had the American Diabetes Association out doing a workshop. We're bringing other resources to the community that can help improve the health and wellness of the residents.
A benefit that's not lost on people like Arlicia Bryant, who came here on her day off.
Me, I'm a person that suffers with high cholesterol, so I love when they come out, like when it's warm during the summer, and they give you the recipes to make different salads and stuff. It's very tasty, very nutritious. I like it.
Bryant is one of the many who praise the market for being a godsend in the neighborhood. However, not everyone sees the initiative with rose-colored lenses.
Some people that I know, they think, oh man, you're just being lazy and stuff. But no, it's no shame in admitting that sometimes you need financial help. Anything to do to stretch the budget and have some good food,
City Harvest officials are addressing this particular issue in an innovative way.
It is also very important that you allow the customers to pick their own produce, since we want this to resemble a typical indoor market.
The recent success of the Brooklyn and Staten Island markets has prompted City Harvest to consider similar initiatives in Queens and Manhattan. Zyphus Lebra, Independent Sources.
That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned.
We invite you to join us again next week.
Until then, be independent-minded.